Camera on. Start. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our employee engagement seminar. We're going to give it just 1 or 2 seconds. There's a couple of people still logging in, so just be patient for a couple of minutes. Okay, good morning all. My name is Henny Oosthuizen and welcome to the webinar on employee engagement. As an industrial psychologist, I specialize in performance psychology, and I try and understand why people perform. I'm not so interested in making people happy in a business. Might be a little bit provocative to say, but I'm more interested in seeing and understanding why people perform in business. People that perform are happy. I just want to give you a background on Money for Jam, the company that I'm with. Money for Jam is a gig economy tech company, and we specialize in connecting individuals to our clients. Sorry, I just want to see there's a link here. We connect people to our clients to perform certain tasks. Like Uber connects a driver to a passenger, or Airbnb would connect somebody that's looking for accommodation to accommodation, we assist companies to connect with their products, connect them with the informal markets. It's to grow their market space or grow their brand. And we use, we call them jobbers, people that are mainly underemployed or unemployed, rural and urban, to perform certain tasks for us. My division's role in this is to engage, train, and develop our jobbers. So we've got 200 registered jobbers right throughout the country, and they're dispersed all over. And the biggest challenge is, how do we engage with them? So we've developed a framework and a methodology and some tools in how to connect with them. So today's session is all about sharing with you my thoughts, my opinions, my experience, and our insight. Hopefully it will assist you to think a little bit differently about employee engagement. And I always start off all my presentations by saying it's the world according to Henny Oosthuizen. So it's not necessarily specific, not necessarily gospel, but it will be thought-provoking. Okay, so to start off with, our today's session will cover quickly some theory, so that you can just see where the basis of what I built the framework on. Secondly, I'm going to talk about needs of employees, some guidelines that we've developed, and then some things to explore or to think about for the future. So let's start off with Maslow, Hertzberg, and Pokroy and Shapiro. So everybody understand and know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it starts off with the physiological, the basic needs. Now, in the workplace, that is, what is my salary? Do I have the tools? Am I safe in my working environments? And then in working environment, then it moves over to your actualization, where sense of belonging is. And in Hertzberg's language, that's the motivators, and hygiene factors is tools, salary, the basics. So as HR practitioners, I believe that sometimes we skip the hygiene factors and we move over to the motivators. The motivators like teamwork, management, leadership, those are things that we naturally drawn to, but we do not look at hygiene factors. Are the basics in place so that employees could be motivated or engaged? So Pokroy and Shapiro, two South African psychologists, developed a formula that is connection. They call it connection over task, and I think it's very relevant theory in the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. So connection over task is all about how do I connect with people before I go over to the task. Now, an example of that would be I phone into the medical aid. I've got a lump in my chest, and the call center agent answered the phone, and I say, I've been to the doctor, lump in my chest, I need to get the authorization code, and the agent says, what's your medical aid number? So there's no connection to me, and I can't listen because I don't know whether the person has actually heard that this is very serious to me. The correct way to go about there would be, so I'm sorry to hear about your situation. To assist you with your query, I need your ID number or membership number. Now I'm connected to the customer, and then I go over to the task. An opposite, now most of us understand that and get that right, but there's another connection, and that would be if Chubb Security phones you at night, your alarm went off. When they phone you, and you don't want them to ask, how are you well? You need them to connect, say, what is your number? And then you'll give the security number, and they will be able to determine is there a problem or not. Then they can go over to task. So connection that is dependent on the situation that the individual finds himself in. So if we look at the two, Maslow and Hertzberg, it's all about understanding your hygiene factors and then understanding motivators. And the one follows the other one. And connection over task, again, is how do I connect with individuals and then go over to the task. So finding ourselves in this new digital environment, connection is now the question, how do you connect, firstly? And secondly, then the task, how will people start performing the task? So the fundamental needs. There are 5 questions, 4 questions that if an employee or a stakeholder cannot answer these very clearly, you cannot go over to the performance needs. Now, fundamental needs for me is very hygiene factors, and performance needs would be the motivators. So look at the first one. Who do you report to? Sounds like a very simple question. Let's look at a CEO of a company, listed company. Does he report to the shareholders? Does he report to the board? Does he report to his clients or customers? And the answer always lies in which person can fire him. Now, in this case, if he doesn't comply with what the market needs, he'll won't perform, and then he'll get fired. It's not the board. It's not his shareholders. They will fire him if he cannot follow the market and perform according to the market. Let's look at a typical PA or a personal assistant in an organization, reports to multiple executives and the CEO. Who does the person report to? The highest ranking person is the CEO. That would be the reporting line, and that would be the person that will get the attention. So we always tend to think that people or employees understand exactly who they report to, and they don't. You have to make clear that in some certain situations it's very clear and certain not. Is it the supervisor? Is it the team leader? Is it the supervisor? Is it the manager? Is it the warehouse manager? Who does the individual report to? That must be very clear. The second thing is, what is expected of me when I come to work today? Not what my job description is. Job description, role clarity, job grading, salary bands, those are important and needs to be in place. But when I come to work today, do I know what I need to do? And secondly, when I'm finished at the end of the day, did I meet the standards, the requirement and the standards at what it was done? So the next thing is then my earnings. If I then do these tasks and I do it at the standard requirement, is my earnings equal to my contribution? Not as am I happy with my salary, but do I feel that my contribution is equal to my earnings? So if that's out of sync, employees cannot engage, employees cannot be managed, employees cannot be happy because they feel that they're contributing and they're not getting rewarded for it. Also, the reverse side, I get rewarded for something, but I know that I'm not contributing to the organization. Somebody will find me at a point in time, people will see that, and something else will then happen. The last one is, do you know if your job is secure? That has always been the case, and it's now not more relevant, but definitely relevant now. So if you ask anybody that works in your organization, do you know if your job is secure? Will determine whether the individual is ready to engage with the organization. So that is most probably the most difficult and tricky thing to get employees to understand in a very transparent way whether their jobs are secure or not. I just want to stop there and give you my views on when employment is secure. And it's all around what is the most important thing in business. So a lot of people say, HR people say, it's people are the most important asset, etc. And it, in my opinion, not. What drives security for employees is the market that they operate in, is the product and service that your company delivers to a market. If there's no market, doesn't matter whether your CEO and the staff and everybody is good, you cannot have job security because the market is in decline. The tourism market, very uncertain at the moment. It's in decline, where mining and online shopping is in the up. So if you talk to employees in those environments and ask, are you secure? The guys at takealot.com are feeling very comfortable. People in the tourism industry, not so. So that's the first thing that drives a job security, and it is to get to your employees and staff is for them to get a clear understanding of where your market is. Then your product, how competitive is your product in the market? They know whether they've got a great CEO, because that's the third most important factor. They know whether they've got a great management team, because that's your fourth most important. And then if you've got great staff with a great management team, with a great CEO, with great products and services in a great market, now you've got an environment where employees can be engaged. Okay, now let's go over to the performing needs. Assuming that now everybody is comfortable, they know what to do, when to do, who they report to, what their income is, and market is secure, is they now ready to perform. And I think most of us understand the value of the culture in the organization. What are the values and culture that the organization drive? So just to stop, definition for me, values culture is simply put the way we do things around here. In the old world of work, the culture permeated from the CEO. People could see the CEO, they could engage with the CEO physically. And that culture then really was driven from the top down to the organization. The interesting thing now is, how are you going to drive culture where you never engage with people in person? And that is one of the challenges in employee engagement going forward. How are we going to get all new employees and existing employees engage with our values, engage with the company culture? The second thing is training and development. Employees are mostly self-centered. What's in it for me, and what is self-interest? So often we think that all employees like to train and to develop themselves, and I don't believe that's necessarily true. I'll tell you why. If we believe that going to gym, all of us believe going to gym is a great idea. Yet the people on this webinar today, most probably 5% go to gym and 95% not. So if you know that it's very important, why don't you go? However, people that's had a heart attack or heart conditions, serious heart conditions, about 95% of them will go to gym. And the reason for that is their self-interest. I need to go to gym because of my health. Now, in the workplace, if you cannot tie training and development to my contribution that will increase in the organization, and then my status and income will increase with that, there is no self-interest. Why would I then train and develop myself? Go and measure your organization. How many of your employees at the moment are actively in developing themselves? And if it's more than 5%, you've got a great company. If not, it is just the norm out there. And the question that you've got to ask is, have you been able to connect the training and development that the individual needs to improve his earning capacity or his own personal needs? Then responsibilities, growth, recognition. For employees to be engaged, they must perceive that their responsibilities is important and that their responsibilities grow over time. They've got to experience growth and they've got to get recognition for what they do. Growth is very complicated. When you work in an organization as in a position that really there is no growth factor. For instance, I'm a receptionist and I'm not, the person's not going to become the CEO. Firstly, to create the reality, that is the reality. How do you give the person more responsibility? How do you grow the person in their job? You can grow vertically or horizontally. Now, I think in those job categories is how do you get people to grow horizontally? And then in the influential position, middle management, supervisors, how do you grow them upwards? And then in your specialized job categories, researchers, programmers, how do you give them exposure to new technology, new research, new information all the time so that they can broaden their knowledge base. And then lastly, connection, that ties back to connection over task. How will the organization connect with individuals? So how will you as a management team connect with your people on a daily basis? Now, in the old days, there were a lot of practices that we had. Our staff meetings, our group huddles in the morning. So now you've got a dispersed workforce that now operate from home. What will the connection look like? And different organizations will follow different connection methods. The first one is you would be able to do group huddles in the morning. you would be able to do your weekly one-on-ones with staff, because you can do that on Teams. The huddles, you can do that on Teams, you can do it on webinars. A phone call is going to replace the physical face-to-face, but it's still a channel to engage with employees. WhatsApp groups, WhatsApps, SMSs, emails, all of those are now channels that you can use to connect. The fact that you don't see people physically anymore, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the future of engagement later on at the end of my slide, that I see that's going to change. So, put the fundamentals in place before you want to try and begin fancy with addressing performance needs. Once you've got that right with all your employees in your organization, then move over to your performance needs. Understand how you did it in the past and how you're going to complete that. And when it comes to performance needs, it is driven by the needs of the individual, not of the needs of the company. But the needs of the individual must then be aligned to what the needs of the company will be. So if I'm trained to perform well, to get paid well, I will perform well for the organization. If our performance management system is there to reward extraordinary performance, I will deliver extraordinary performance to the organization. What's my time looking like? Okay. Penny's employee engagement guidelines. Over the last 2 years, these are the guidelines. Working in the digital world, engaging with our 200,000, we call them jobbers, employees, that we've developed. The fact that COVID came and there was lockdown didn't affect our way to engage, because we just had to go digital, and we've always were digital. So the first golden rule in engagement guideline is relevance. Do not engage with people with information, with activities that is not relevant to them. So my favorite is company newsletters. And in the company newsletter, we've got whose birthdays it was, who had new babies, who got promoted, qualifications. I'm not interested in Caroline that's had a baby down in Cape Town. I don't know Caroline. I've never worked with Caroline. Why would it have any relevance to me? In a world of total overload of information, people can only absorb a certain amount of information. So when you engage, whether it's communicate, whether it's train, whatever interaction it is, make it relevant to that individual. I love using the example that on Friday nights, I'm the oldest person in our company. Our CEO is 38 years old, and it's a tech company, everybody is young. They love the digital drinks evening on Fridays, and it's a lot of fun. I love playing golf on a Friday, 4 o'clock. I want to eat golf balls, and they want to have virtual drinks. So the relevance of that engagement is divorced from my own personal needs. So when you engage with activities, evaluate each of them and say, is it relevant to that specific person? The next one is incentives or incentivized engagement, incentivized learning, incentivized communication. So what is an incentive? It can be a disincentive or incentive. I ask you to go on this training. If you don't go on the training, I'll dismiss you. That's a disincentive. So I know that I've got to do it. The incentive of that is if I go on the training, I retain my job. But if the training is relevant to my needs to perform better, to earn more, it now connects to incentive. I will be engaged with the organization on the information that's relevant to me, that you're engaging, so that I can perform. The incentive to be part of my daily or weekly stand-up or huddle meeting is to be informed so that I know what I need to do so that I can perform, so that I can earn more and have better job security. Then unique interest groups. To drive relevance in an organization, it's very important to understand your unique interest groups. A very good example of that is typically your WhatsApp groups that you've got. You've got family and friends on the one, all your golf friends on the one, all the fathers and sons. So there's different interest groups. And only information that is relevant to that group is posted on that group. And organizations need to structure their engagement activities that it is focused around those interest groups, because it's going to drive, assist with getting the right stuff relevance, to only push relevant information to those interest groups. Then from a timing point of view, that could be the time of day, it could be the time of week, it could be when you've just retrenched people. Do you send out specific communication how great the company is? Is your engagement with salespeople on a Monday morning? No, yes. It's not on a Tuesday afternoon. Tuesdays they've got to go and sell. It is most probably on Friday afternoons. So the timing of your engagement activity, let's use a simple example like your year-end function. Doesn't help organizing it on the 27th of December. The date is wrong. But don't have a year-end function when you've just retrenched 20 people and spend a lot of money on the timing of the engagement is simply wrong. Then I think one of my favorite ones is excitement in your engagement process. A lot of organizations use excitement. That is balloons, fun things, activities, go out and do team building as the main way of engaging with employees. I think it's got the least impact, but I'm not saying that there isn't place for fun and for this new dance revolution. Jerusalem dance is a good example of something that is suddenly worldwide, it's relevant, people enjoy it, it's fun, it creates a team spirit. I think that's very relevant. Apples and pears and giving people rewards on these digital engagement platforms, this notion of a gamification, make it fun. There is a place for it, but don't overdo it. I think relevant information to me is way more important than just getting me excited, because it's like the yes man motivating speakers. They motivate you, and 3 days later it's gone because you couldn't retain the information. It might not have been relevant to your situation, etc. So when you do it, you just get your timing on that right. And then I think from an engagement guideline, there is no one tool or one method that will cover what you need to do. So a good example of that is everybody tells me that it's better to learn with pictures than to learn with words. And I always say, well, you can't teach a child to swim with words. You've got to put the child in a swimming pool to learn. So when you engage with people in a group, is a Zoom meeting or the tool or the channel to use? Is it WhatsApp? Is it a phone call? Do you need to get people together? So is it documented? For everybody to reach everybody, you've got to use the right channel, the right method, and the right tool. Now, it was very easy in the old days. We got everybody in the boardroom, had a meeting. I called somebody into my office, we had a one-on-one. WhatsApp lately has been used in WhatsApp groups. Now you've got to sit back and say, okay, how do I engage with people now, and which of those are then the relevant ones? Okay. Explore the unknown. This is my second last slide. It will be another 10 minutes. Employee engagement, intimate or transactional. I predict that employee engagement is going to move from a very intimate need or requirement in an organization over to very much a transactional process. What do I mean with that? We used to come to work early, you work the whole day, you go home late, and the people that you engage with are the people at work. Most senior executives would work 6 to 6.5 days a week. Most employees would take work home or come into the office, but the reality is a lot of time was spent at work. And that's why engaging on a more personal, intimate level was very important. Now that people are moving away from the office and are engaging, and most of you would have experienced it, you see your husband more, you see your children more, they're around you even within work hours, and you see your colleagues less. I predict that engagement is going to become more transactional. And if that's the case, don't fight it, because I think it's better. It's better for individuals to be connected at home, be transactional at work, because the more transactional they become, the more focused they become on what the task at hand is to perform, and they're going to do better. So, but that's just a prediction of mine. I think that we'll see over time what happens there. If that is also the case, maybe drinks evenings, digital on a Friday afternoon will disappear, because there's no need to it, because it's not relevant. Because I only have a need to engage now. For me, is transactional. That's now becomes like CHAP security. When they phone, what's your code? Go over to the job to send out somebody. I think one of the really interesting ones is going to be a blended work environment. So our company is a digital company, a tech company, like I said. Everybody now works from home. However, if you are Takealot, it's a digital company and they've got a warehouse environment. So the blending of your engagement process with employees, one would have to consider that there's going to be different challenges, channels, different methods, different tools to engage with them. The next one, the company culture, historic versus new. Your culture will be affected whether you are all working from home or whether you've got it blended. The only thing that might change, stay similar, is where companies still have to come in and operate totally the same way as they used to operate. But even those environments might be changed just because of what's happened in our external environment. So the company culture, like I said earlier, is driven from the CEO. If the CEO physically sees people less, the impact of that cultural values will be less. Again, I say don't fight that. See what works best and then drive that. And we'll have to have a lot of these discussions and debates to find out what is the best way to create a solid company culture going forward. From an HR point of view, that's the fraternity that most of you would operate within, is an understanding of how you're going to recruit new people, how you're going to induct people, how you're going to manage them, how you're going to recognize, reward, policies and procedures, who gets data and who not. All of those will have to be adjusted. A very practical example. If you only engage on WhatsApp, Does WhatsApp belong to you, your profile pic, or does it belong to the company? So if you portray the company, so I engage a lot with external clients. I can't be with a brandewyn and Coke and a cigarette in my hand on my profile pic. Or when I go hunting with this big buck that I've just shot, all our customers will be angry at us. So you now have to look at the company policies in social media very carefully and understand how this is going to be adjusted. And then socio-economic factors. Now I have home-based employees. When people in South Africa talk to me about millennials and all the different groups that we classify people in, I don't understand the South African context of that. In South Africa, if you ask me, how would you group people? I would say urban and rural. I would say literate, non-literate. I would say ethnicity. I would say previously disadvantaged or advantaged. Those are socioeconomic factors that will affect the way that engagement is going to take place. So how can you expect somebody that lives in a one-bedroom flat with a single mother with a child now to engage with you if you don't have an office space? Those are challenges that you cannot view from a senior management privilege point of view and say, okay, everybody has got access to data. Everybody's got access to internet-connected devices. So those are definitely issues to not view from a European-American point of view, but to really take into account the South African context. Then the channels that you engage with, the tools that you engage with, the methods that you engage with, has got to take that into account. Okay, my last slide. My advice, 3 things. Don't oversimplify engagement to be having fun. It is way more complicated than that. You've got to think it through. You've got to understand it. You must be able to define it. And then you've got to go and say, this is why our engagement is important. This is why we're using this method, channel, and tools. If you do not understand why you're going to do it, you might just operate on the surface and employee engagement will not take place. So don't oversimplify. The next one is less is more. Your engagement activities can rather be fewer, that's very impactful, than this huge amount of activities. Then it's a dance, then it's a one-on-one, then it's a stand-up, then it's a virtual seminar, then it's a training session online that somebody has got to do. Go and look and say, okay, less is more. What is the most, start with the most fundamental thing that you want to do, and then build it out and build it out and build it out so that you are comfortable that you are engaged with employees without overwhelming them. Test with employees the engagement levels, not by asking them whether they're engaged. Just look at their performance levels. If people perform, they're engaged. Don't ask employees, are you happy? Because the critical employees will say, no, they're never happy. The amiables, these soft guys in our business, will always tell you that they're happy. Look at the performance. If the performance is there, it's transactional. If we're moving over, if I'm right that we're moving over to a transactional world, look at the performance and reward exceptional performance. And then my last thought is, you will have to innovate. You cannot just adapt. Digital engagement is new everywhere in the world. Engagement not, but digital engagement. Blended engagement. I've got physical people in the workplace, and I've got digital people that works from home. Or you've got to sit back and say, does the tool, the method exist for me to deliver? And if it's not, I've got to explore and explore and explore. There's not one tool or one thing that you can do. Don't take a year-end function and say, we're going to do the year-end function digitally. Say to yourself, why do I need a year-end function? Why did we always do it? I now cannot do it the way that I used to do it. How can I replace it? And don't go for the easiest option by saying, okay, we're going to do a webinar. It might be a webinar. But if it's not a webinar, don't oversimplify. Try and come up with innovative ways, make your employees part of that, so that you do cover different socioeconomic groups of people in your business, that you do cover senior people, junior people, because the needs will be different, etc. I'm going to open up for some questions. If you want to ask some questions, I just need to open up the, is it open? Okay, so it's open. If anybody wants to ask me any question, make any comments. I see that there's some written questions as well. I'll go through them, and I would I'll also try and answer some of them. I've got them open here. Okay. Okay, HJ wants to know, would you say that one can only understand engagement when you can or know how to measure it? So actually, I would answer that question by the saying, what gets measured gets done. But unfortunately, people only use half of that statement, what gets measured gets done. You can only measure what gets done in the full statement is, you can only define something that you can understand. And if you can define something, you can then measure what you want. So it is firstly then very important to understand why and understand this, define it. And once you've defined it, you can put a measurement to it. HJ is not just a pulse survey where you ask people a lot of questions and then get answers and say, yeah, people are happy or not happy. I think the engagement levels are more to do with what is my sick leave absenteeism? What is my performance levels against market expectations? In Mercedes' case, how many luxury cars did they sell versus BMW, their main competitor? If they've sold more, is it their product that's superior? If the product's the same, do they have an exceptional CEO? If the CEOs are the same, people are performing in the organization. So it's not just this employee engagement surveys. I think there are much better ways to assist. That answers your question. Garth. If I could just go to Garth there. Oh, Garth just says he believes in incentivization. It's because Garth is in sales. And Lynette, what would be the best for surveys, established surveys such as Gallup? I don't think there's a best method to determine a very similar question to what H said. I don't think there's a best method. I think one's got to understand in your organization what is the relevant method. I can give you a very accurate, if in our organization, I'm only allowed to use one thing to determine engagement levels. I would use the training completion rates. So if I put out a training activity that must be completed by people, whether it's online or physical classroom training, whatever, training completion rate will indicate, number one, the discipline in the organization and the engagement level. People that are disconnected with the organization simply don't complete training because they don't see it as value. With one proviso, that the training was relevant to that specific group. I think my message is, don't just go with the surveys. I think apart from the surveys being constructed badly, to ask somebody in a questionnaire, are you happy with your boss? Fairly happy with your boss? So happy with your boss, not happy, and extremely unhappy. Are you either happy with your boss or not? I wouldn't ask that question. I would say, send me the notes of your last performance discussion with your boss. Now I've got evidence that you had the discussion, and I've got evidence what was agreed upon by the two of you. Because amiables in organizations will always say, I'm happy with my boss, because they're afraid to get fired. The critical guys will say, my boss is a poople. They will always be unhappy with their boss. So yeah, I think one's got to explore the non-questionnaire things. That's sick leave, absenteeism, the amount of theft in your organization. If people are disconnected with your organization, don't share your values and culture, you underpay them, they're undervalued, they don't see their contribution being rewarded, and you've got products they'll steal. Your theft will be higher in your organization. In a mining, manufacturing environment, I think safety indicators. What is your accident hours, incident hour free numbers like? If your safety is high, your engagement is high, because it's related not on how happy people are, it is about how people perform. Okay, I hope that's answered your question, Lynette, and we can debate this even more, and I can give you some advice in your own organization if I understand a little bit better. Then, Richard, can you quantify the impact of engagement through incentivization with or without incentives? What is more impactful? Richard, there was a piece of research done with university students, and they tried to understand, do students, they looked at students that's on bursaries, whether they outperform students that are not on bursaries. It's not a South African study because our scenario is more complicated as far as bursaries are concerned. But the finding was students that's on bursaries significantly outperforms people that's not on a bursary. And the finding of the research was simply because there is a very strong financial incentive. If I do not succeed, I will not get my bursary. But usually tied to a bursary is an opportunity to go and work in the company. And if it's at Google, if you get a bursary at Google in tech, you want to get into Google. So you will do your best to get into Google. So I'm very pro financial incentives that is directly connected to the person's outcome. Now, I want to say something very controversial here. You can't incentivize all people in an organization. The reality is your salespeople have got a way bigger impact on your bottom line than what your receptionists have. Pay your receptionist properly, create good working environment for her, treat her with respect, give her the right tools. Incentivizing her is not going to increase the company's performance. Your salespeople, your management, your executives. Put all your executives on contract and reward them by the share price. Then you'll see them perform. It's interesting in South Africa, we put all the entry-level staff on contracts and all the senior staff in permanent jobs, and it should be the other way around, because the biggest contributor or impact for people is number one, your CEO and your executive team. The questions can be quantified, the same as HA's answer and Lynette's answer, Richard. Go and look at indicators in your business. Production cost per unit. If it's at the level that it wants to, it's engaged employees. Look at your safety, look at those hard measures that is there. Yeah. Good. Okay, guys, I see that our time is just about up. thank you very much for attending the webinar. My contact details, very simply, is on the screen next. Send me a mail. You can phone me on that telephone number, WhatsApp me. If you want to talk a little bit more about engagement. We're hosting another webinar. The next one is hosted by HJ van Sail. He's a specialist in how to digitize training content. So one of our tools that we use is our mobile training technology tools, where we assist clients to train them, engage with their clients through technology. But now clients don't know how to take content and digitize it. It's quite an interesting webinar as well. So please join us. Do you know when that date is? 23rd of September. And we'll send you an invite for the people that's on this list of webinars. Or find me on LinkedIn, Henny Oosthuizen, you'll find me there, or go to our website, moneyforjam.com. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.